Get started. Hi, happy International Women's Day. My name is Allison Mendez, and I'm the current chair for HRP Women, which is our first employee resource group. Yes, claps for that, claps for that. For those of you that don't know, the ERG focuses on connecting, supporting, and developing women here at HRP, as well as women across our industry and in our communities. We tend to use the 4 C's model, which includes career, client, community, and culture, for our goals and initiatives for future ERG events. We do have a lot of events planned throughout this year, a lot of campaigns and a lot of activities, so stay tuned for that. This is actually going to be my last thing that I do as the current chair. We do have a new leadership coming in. We have our own Sarah Voisin, who's going to be the new chairwoman. Yes, clap for her. We have Jane Smith, who is going to be our vice chair. I believe she's virtual today. And yes, yay, Jane! And then we have Carly Sandin, who is going to be our new secretary. She's in the field right now doing that work hard. Yes, if you're interested in joining the ERG, please reach out to any of the team members, or even myself, if you're more comfortable with that. If you feel like it's going to be too much of a commitment, please come to a meeting first. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of connecting with each other, and it's really good to be able to connect with other women here at HRP. I also want to really thank Carly, Alicia, Joan, and everybody who made this possible, as well as our panelists for coming here today to speak with all of us. And down. Thank you. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Alicia, who is the Director of Marketing here at HRP.
Hello, everyone. Okay, thank you, Allison. Welcome, everyone. This is HRP Women's Employee Resource Group. We're very, very excited to host this first of many company-wide events. A couple things I want to mention first before we get started, just to kind of explain what's going to happen today. The panel session will be between 30 and 45 minutes, and I will join the ladies for the Q&A session. That's why the empty chair is there, to answer questions from the audience. Any questions that come in during the session via Teams chat will be pitched to the panel during Q&A, so feel free to put questions in the chat if you would like to do that. For questions here in the room, we ask that you come to the table here to use the microphone, because we want to make sure everyone can hear the question in our virtual space here. And lastly, just want to mention, Lisa Agliecco has a very important client call at 1, so she will be leaving at some point. She's not mad, she's just leaving to get on the call, so just so everyone knows when she leaves. So, this group supports our JEDI mission, which is to cultivate an environment of inclusion by actively celebrating diversity and ensuring that opportunities and success for our employees is accessible and obtainable by working against systemic barriers and acknowledging disparity. The purpose of a company employee resource group, or you'll hear us say ERG, is it creates an open forum for employees who share a common identity to meet and support one another in building their community and sense of belonging. It facilitates a clear line of communication from the ERG members to leadership in order to voice concerns and solve problems. It's a resource for leadership regarding employee, community issues, needs, and policies. And it also seeks to advance a respectful and inclusive company culture. So I want everyone to remember those points, because this is how it's structured for any ERG, not just HRP Women, but for all ERGs. We look forward to the development of more ERGs in the future. So it is Women's History Month, and today is International Women's Day, which is a global holiday celebrated annually on March 8th as a focal point in the women's rights movement, bringing attention to issues such as gender equality, reproductive rights, and violence and abuse against women. Again, thank you all for being here today. Today's panel includes 4 wonderful women, HRP employees, who will be sharing their thoughts and experiences on career, work-life balance, mentorship, camaraderie, leadership, and perseverance. The goal for today is to have an opportunity to learn from them, to gain perspective, and to be inspired. Welcome, ladies. Thank you. Great. So we're going to start with everyone introducing themselves here on the panel. So Lisa, we'll start with you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Lisa Aliecco. I'm a project manager here in the Farmington, Connecticut office, and I've been here for 20 years now.
I'm Allison Teropoulos. I'm the Director of Compliance Engineering. I work for both the Farmington and the New York offices, and I've been here for 3.5 years.
I'm Jessica Kruzek. I am currently serving as the DEC Engineering On-Call Contract Manager / LEP / Senior Project Manager. Like Allison, I work out of 2 offices between Clifton Park and Farmington, though we live here, so this is the better, closer option. And also, I've been here a little over 8 years now.
Good afternoon. I am Cynthia Ollie. I am a senior consultant from the Greenville, South Carolina office, so I'm glad to be up here to see everyone. And I've been working at HRP, it'll be 16 years this year. And since it's Women History Month, I've been practicing this woman thing for almost 45 years. Yes!
Give me some. Great. Well, thank you for that. So let's get started. So I'm actually going to start with you, Lisa. So how did you get started in your career here? And everyone can kind of answer that question down the line.
Originally, this was my second environmental job out of college. So I started here back in October 2001, and as a project scientist, I guess we called ourselves at the time, just regular geologist. And then I worked here for 4 years. And then I moved on to another company for a year, had my son, and then got a call from Dan out of the blue, and they needed help here at HRP, and would I be willing to put in some hours from home for them. So I started back in 2007 doing that, just a few hours a week, and through the years it built up over time. I did about 7 years working from home part-time until I became a project employee, and that was back in 2014. And then from there, I went from part-time to full-time working from home until I came back on full-time in 2019. And yeah, so it was a very, long, kind of unique experience I had here, where they let me work from home full-time as I raised my children, which was very nice. And
that's that flexible environment that we talk about so much.
Supportive environment while my kids were little, and yeah, being able to put in the hours whenever I can. And the really nice part was for a while there, I was turning over lab data in the evenings. So the lab data would come in 5, 6 o'clock at night, and then I would turn it around for 5 a.m. the next morning. So I was pretty much working from 6 p.m. till midnight every day for HRP, which worked in very well with their schedule and my schedule. So it was beneficial for both sides. Yeah.
So I actually worked for the state of Connecticut for 13 years before I came to HRP as an air permit engineer. I got bored with the regulatory stuff and eventually decided that I needed a new challenge. So HRP filled that challenge void for me. And I guess the rest is history.
Jessica?
It is very challenging. Many different challenges, but all good and all exciting.
It's careful what you wish for. I have worked for small companies and large, from East Coast to West, all sorts of remediation site characterization projects. I was working on retail portfolios for a large firm when I was contacted by HRP, and I was not looking for a job. I was not looking to move. They let me do my own thing. It was great. But I had a great conversation that was an interview that wasn't an interview that lasted like 3 hours. And I went, oh yeah, this is fun. There are other projects out there besides gas stations. And so 8 years ago, I came here as a senior project manager at the time. Yep, and it was great because I got to work both sides of the site contaminant aisle again, as opposed to one thing all the time.
Well, I come from industry, so my story is probably strange because one day I was looking for Jackie Batsley, and we both worked in industry together. And I called to her office, and she was gone. I'm like, where is Jackie? Because I needed some help with a waste question. And they had told me she had moved on. Well, I tracked down Jackie. And Jackie was at HRP. And I said, Jackie, can you answer this question for me? Still, you only been gone for a month or two. And she's like, sure. And I said, wait a minute, how is it over there? Because sometimes working in the industry, you don't understand what's outside of industry. You only know what's there. And sometimes you're programmed to think that's the only thing you can do is march to the beat of the industry drum. Right. And she's like, you'll like it over here, Cynthia, come. And I'm like, I don't know. Do you think I'm going to like it? She's like, you got to come. So I ended up at HRP via Jackie, and I was interviewed. And I remember being interviewed by Tad, and he says, she's quiet, Jackie. That's not the person you said that we were getting. And she's like, no, she's not quiet. And I said, Jackie, I had to get this job at HRP. So I called Jackie one day, and she's like, come on over. And within a month, I was over.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you here, Cynthia, for sure. So thank you all for that introduction on your career and how you got here. So I'm going to start with Jessica, actually. Were there any female employees that you looked up to either at HRP or in previous jobs? And the rest of you can answer that question.
I would say my very first job, I was very fortunate to work with a lady who was part-time. She was 5'0" and commanded a presence like you wouldn't believe. And she stood for no baloney ever, but she was kind and nurturing. And she could curse like a sailor, but you don't mess with Sue. But she was fantastic role model in terms of how to deal with clients and put yourself out there, how to talk with people, how to be a good mentor to other people. And I try to follow her example still today. I think about Sue a lot. Sue Schneck, if you're out there and watching this, I'm going to send this to you. And I would say most of the places I've worked, there's been a handful of ladies that I can glean little things from that I've picked up some good ideas and how to handle myself and to move forward in the business.
Yeah, that's great. So I actually have an additional question to that. So when it comes to mentoring, so Allison, actually, so you talked, we talked in the past about mentoring younger staff because that was something that you didn't have. You didn't have that female mentor. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I'm very fortunate to have really stellar female colleagues, as you can see up here. But I haven't in my career had that mentor, that, person that I can look up to. So it's very important to me as a manager of, newer staff, people that are coming straight out of college, that I can be that mentor for them. Something I didn't have. So I feel very lucky to have the opportunity to be that for someone.
Does anyone else want to talk about, mentorship and how mentorship affects leadership, how it supports that?
Well, during my college years, I'm a chemistry major, and you don't find too many females that major in chemistry. A lot are majoring in biology, but I love chemistry. I had one female at the college, and she tapped me on the shoulder one day, and she's like, look, and I know the person you see today, everyone knows today, is the Cynthia, the vibrant Cynthia, but Cynthia would sit over in a corner and be like, I know the answer, but I'm not going to say anything. I know how to make that formula, but I'm not know how to do that. And I would do it, and I'd be whispering all the time. And she said, you cannot sit in a room as a chemist and not be heard. She's like, you need to step up. And she would come and talk to me every day. Her name was Sheila Hill, Dr. Sheila Hill. She would come talk to me every day. She would take me out to lunch, and she's like, you're going to be a chemist. And if you're going to be a chemist, you're going to have to be out there. She'd already told me, you're going to be working with men. And you need to make your presence known. And she said, and you know the answers. You know what to do. When I got into industry, there was an older lady who had worked in the mill when they were wearing skirts, when women had to wear skirts in the mill, when they had to wear heels in the mill. And she said, I had to wear skirts. I'm in pants now. I'm in flats now. And she said, do not let them run over you. And I'm like, I got to keep this job. I went to school and I got to keep this job. I can't move back in with my parents. And, I got to make my parents proud. So I started back sitting in the corner. So I started freshman year, got up to senior year as a president of an organization to drop right back down to sitting back in the corner. And I know it's crazy sitting back in the corner again because I'm 21 and I have this manager position over men. What am I going to do? Where are the women? And she's like, you can do this. And it was constantly every day. And finally I had a desk beside her and she would nudge me every day, get up and do it, get up and do it, get up and do it. And I had to. And so the Cynthia everyone sees today, it took a lot of years to be as confident in what I am doing at this point. And it took some women nudging me, a lot of nudging. Some of them pushed me. Some of them let me hit my head and they would come down and help me clean it up, but that's how awesome. I got it. Yeah. And
I want you to keep the microphone because I have a question for you. So to what you were saying to that point, you talk a lot about, how the Cynthia today isn't the Cynthia that, existed, when you were 21. I won't put how many years, just when you were 21. And you talk about, how there's a progression there. Like you do have to mature to that level of confidence. And so how do you adapt to being in meetings or work situations when you're the only woman in the room? Or I should say, how did you adapt to that at that time?
I remember the first meeting. My plant manager was a guy, male. He believed in me. He took me to a meeting and I opened the door and everyone had gray hair. He was a redhead. So his hair was not gray yet. And they were old men. And I couldn't concentrate on anything they said. And I was there specifically because I was hired as a chemist. So I didn't do I was not hired as an environmentalist. I was hired as a chemist. And then when the position came open, I went to the environmental field. I was sick for 2 days. When I say sick, I had a migraine. I left nauseated. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't take notes because I could not believe I was the only female in the room. And I'm like, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. And I'm like, what year is this again? This is ridiculous. And so Linda, that's her name, Linda Kelly. I'm like, Linda, she said, you had the experience, didn't you? You went in there with all them old white men. I was like, yes, ma'am. I'm like, I can't do this, Linda. And she's like, yes, you can do this. But it took a lot of coaching for me to be able to go back. And it's not that I didn't know what I was doing. It was that these old men have more experience than I have. There was not one woman in there to even just, she could look at me and smile, but their faces were, and I'm like, I can't do this. But it took a lot of, over the years of just understanding I can do this regardless. Women are still not in the room, but I can walk into a room and the confidence is just built over years and over years. And then Jason and Michael in the Greenville office like to give me a hard time. They're like, I don't understand why everybody likes you, Cynthia. And you come in there so direct. I'm like, because, yeah, you going to jail, but we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun on your way to jail. Let's clean your mess up. But yes, you're going to jail. You're going to pay this fine. But we're going to have fun cleaning up your mess. But it took a while to get to this point because I needed that mentoring. I needed my confidence built because if not, I feel that I would be right behind the person who won't get me a computer right now. I'm giving him a hard time. But I would be in the back corner not doing anything.
So the mentorship is really important for us women to have that, especially as we're growing in our role. So thank you for that, Cynthia. So Jessica, I actually want to pitch this next question to you. You've talked about something that's very interesting. This is something that I also actually struggle with, striking the balance between being supportive and nurturing, but, also being, stern when you have to and no nonsense when you have to, and not being perceived as combative or aggressive or all those words that are typically used towards women when they're in leadership roles or when they're managing. So was this a significant barrier in your career? Did you see that as something? And again, I say barrier because this is something that we deal with ourselves. Like, we're harder on ourselves than anyone else, right? So, I know for me, like, I had to make the decision that, well, I'm just going to go and do this, and I don't care what anyone says. And that's been successful for me. So was there, did you have that same thing?
I had two very specific experiences that play into this. One was when I was a junior engineer. I was sitting in a meeting. We were the subcontractor, and I was instructed by two of the people in the room to go a certain route. And we went that route. We designed it that way. We sat in the room, and here I am with like 7 or 8 other people, all men. And they decided apparently that wasn't the way they wanted to go. And they pinned it on me. And I was like, what? Excuse me? That was not the conversation we had. And so they were trying to talk down to me, and I kept trying to be like, but, wait, get a word in. And I was told after the meeting to hold my tongue and wait till there was an opportunity to talk, which sometimes there just isn't. Sometimes you just got to get in there. And then the other one was I worked at a different firm where the lead of engineering or lead of environmental basically said that I was combative. Now, I don't know if any of you know me, but really combative, seriously? Yeah. But the only thing that I could figure that I did to him was I asked questions. I asked him questions of what, why did you do it that? I was trying to learn, but I think, and I never like to go this route. I don't like to say, oh, it's because I'm a woman. No. My first thing is I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. We're all people, right? And sometimes people are just jerks, I mean, jerks are jerks, male or female, whatever. And I kind of gave it that spin because I didn't want to make it about gender. Right. I later learned it was about gender. But it made me want to stand up for myself a little bit more and put it out there. And so now when I talk to people, and now I have staff, right? Like I oversee a group of 13 people, and I work with project managers of varying age and history, and a whole bunch of young staff. And in doing that, you gotta be firm. I mean, you have to kind of reel in people when they go sideways, and you have to do all these sort of things. But I hope, and I intend to do it in a way that, lets people kind of improve and not call out people in a bad way. I mean, oftentimes I'll try and use humor for it. I hope that the people that I'm doing that with get it. But at the same time, there's always that balance between kind of doing what you need to do, getting it out there, getting the results you need, saying what you need to say, but also kind of walking that line more where you're not a B word. Because frankly...
Or acting like a B word.
Acting like a B word, yes. And it's something that plays into the way we speak. I'm not going to speak for all of you. But I know that there's been times that I've gone to say something and I've stopped and reworded it in a way that I know is a little more
I do that with emails every day,
so
twice a day.
We don't, offend anybody or be combative. It's all the time. I feel like it's probably more like that for women than men. It just is. And actually, I had an experience recently with somebody in this room where we were talking to somebody and we were spitting mad about the circumstance. We were angry. And then it was like, how do you get what you need out of that person without jumping down their throat? And it was, a matter of trying to use a little bit of honey. And can you help me with this? As opposed to going, you screwed this up. We need you to redo it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, language is very important in that regard.
Very, very important. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that balance is a constant thought.
Yeah,
in this role. Constant.
So does anyone want to add or talk about that?
Sure, I can add because I've been called or referred to as the B word several times because I think I'm confident and direct. So that leads them to think that I am, which I don't think I am, but I guess sometimes I am direct and confident, and sometimes they need to be told that that's not the way it's supposed to be, so get it done right. So, and that sometimes you're taken as,
So this question's for you, Lisa, actually. So Lisa, when she explained her career and kind of everything, there was a lot of flexibility there. So I think you're a great person to kick off this question with, how did you manage that, still getting everything done, and how did you stay grounded through all of those transitions?
A lot of support from my family, from my coworkers. My parents were a huge help. But having understanding bosses was also a huge help as well. They've always been supportive of my family, getting everything done for my family, giving me work, even though, I was only a part-time employee because I would still hit my deadlines. I'd stay up late just to make sure, that I got the report done on time, which I think gave them a lot of confidence in me and my skills. So, and then being very honest, I think too helped. Like, this is what my family schedule is like, this is what I have on my plate, and having them understand that as well, and having everyone understand what's going on with me, that way they knew when I needed support, when I could be there, when I couldn't be there. But I've always found HRP to be extremely supportive of family life, of being a mom. Even more recently through all the career, in the fall, my daughter was in the volleyball team, and they completely understood, yep, you have to leave at 3:00 to get her to practice, to get to the games, get your hours in whenever you can. It's a constant theme here. If you have to work Saturday, if you have to work Sunday to get your hours in, there's no problem with that at all. Like, it doesn't have to just be Monday to Friday to get your hours in. So, I love the flexibility, and I love the understanding, like, hey, my kid's got a doctor's appointment this afternoon. Oh, no problem. We'll move that meeting to, tomorrow or the morning so that you can accommodate, your children's needs. So,
So
I've always found them very
wonderful.
supportive.
Yeah, so the transparency is really important there, right? And it's transparency on both sides. It's not just, oh, HRP, you're expected to do this for me. It's like, no, this is the situation. Let's help each other. And I think that that's a good example of how HRP has worked with you on that. Does anyone want to talk about work-life balance or have any stories? Or it's a hard thing, so I'm not surprised if no one
I have something now. Just real fast, for me, it takes having a strong partner. I could not do what I do without my husband chipping in. It just probably wouldn't be remotely possible. So, thanks, Clay.
Shout out to Clay.
Shout out to Clay, y'all.
And Lance, hey.
I mean, seriously,
Put them all out there.
He's become primary parent. And so that I can travel to New York once or twice a week and put in the hours that I do and do what I do.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's a partnership.
And we talked about that when we were doing our this is official, y'all. We had a rehearsal and everything. So when we were talking, we talked about our spouses in that way too. Like, there's a lot of things, and our parents or people who help like with our families, like they should be up here too talking, they get all the credit too. So thank you for sharing that. So Allison, I'm gonna start with you here. What has been the most rewarding or successful aspect of your career?
So as I mentioned before, being a mentor to staff, seeing, I'm at the point in my career where, I kind of know what I'm doing. I know what I know, the technical stuff. But seeing, my team members be successful at something new, that's really exciting for me. When I can send, Abigail from my team in New York out to a tank inspection, and I know that she's going to do a good job. She's going to come back with good info. She's going to learn stuff. She's going to give me a quality work product, and I can, review it and see that success. That's really rewarding to me.
Nice. Awesome. Anyone else want to share? Most rewarding? You still working on it? I get it. Me too.
Hey, I was at my first groundbreaking on Monday.
Yay!
Yeah,
Congratulations!
with a nice silver shovel.
Yes,
and got
that
my
was
first
awesome.
scoop of dirt and
Everyone
threw
will
it.
see that
Very
picture
exciting for
soon on
me.
social media. You will see that picture soon. Awesome. No, that's wonderful. I'd like to ask this question as well to the whole panel, and anyone who wants to answer it can. So statistics do show that 72% of women have either experienced or witnessed harassment and or inappropriate behavior in the workplace. This systemic issue continues to perpetuate in workplaces across the country. With this knowledge, what advice do you give to women in the workplace and women entering the workplace?
HR and a lot of training. So before coming here, I went through a lot of leadership training when working in industry, but we had a lot of HR training, especially sexual harassment training, a whole lot of it, because we had clients just like we have here. And so having an open door policy with HR, and not only that, what you also do with JEDI, some people don't understand what is sexual harassment
or inappropriate
behavior or comments. We were actually discussing in here of going there, some of the women going to conferences and someone always hitting on you at the conference. And I was telling her, I'm like, no, you can't afford me and my daughter. That's why I come. I'm right. Y'all not gonna be able to afford us. Deal. Yeah. Right. I know, and my husband.
Yeah. Right.
Y'all remember the conversation, right? We've been together 26 years, and I know his birthday, and I know his favorite color. Yeah, now you want me to learn your new? No. Yeah. But a lot of people, no, I'm not in for that. So my husband,
too much. They asking for too much.
Too much. But what I know is that it's the training. If you don't understand what sexual harassment is, inappropriate behavior and comments, if they don't, sometimes they don't know. I'm going to give them that one.
The little grace.
I'm
just a little
grace.
We like to do that. Yep.
But then also the company in 2023, 2022, and 2021 should know and able to give out the information on an annual basis. We're taking a driver's safety training. We have ladder training, and we have 40 hours of half swapper. Well, we need to also slide that into there also, because it's just as important to have that training so everyone can understand. But having an open door policy with having an open door with HR and having that policy, because we also discussed that if I let it slide because I'm confident, I don't care, I'm not leaving my husband who I've been with forever. There's a younger lady than me. There's someone 21 that just started and think her career will be over if she says something. So if I don't say something, hey, he made an inappropriate comment, and I don't start closing the door immediately, I'm just making that gap wider whenever oh yeah, because that's what happens. We need to stand up and actually, hey, this person made an inappropriate comment and it's documented, and HR then have to follow up with that, right? So, yeah, let the other ladies speak, because I know you all been to conferences and we go to job sites and we're the only women at job sites.
Well, I mean, for better or worse, I've never had that happen to me. So, sad for me, glad for me, I guess. But at the same time... but at the same time, I know several people and have seen it myself on other sites, and you would not believe what is said sometimes on some sites. It's like,
it's pretty incredible.
Oh, I believe it. I've heard it.
Yeah. But I also wanted to say it kind of goes both ways. I mean, yes, this happens to women. I've seen it happen to men as well, from the other way around. So in terms of the whole sexual harassment thing, trust in HR and do what you need to do. So I just want to put that out there. It's not just men to women. It can go both ways, and I have seen it go the other way. And it's almost even stranger because he's supposed to think that's cool. You know what I mean? Right. But it's not. It's not under any circumstances. So.
And I would agree with Jessica. I've seen it both ways too. It's not just a one-directional thing.
I mean, this is the women's ERG in the panel, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and we're just going by the statistic because the percentage is much higher in that regard.
Of course
women,
it is.
So
yes,
that's why we're discussing
I think
that.
it's important that you feel like you have, whether it's HR or someone else, right? Yeah. That you have a person that you can go to, that you know, trust them, you know, and I think like anyone on this panel for sure would receive you with, you know, open arms and want to support you in anything, you know, anything that happened to you.
Right, and empathy for sure. Yeah, I know. I think it's there's something really interesting about this because there are men who are in rooms with other men who are making very inappropriate comments, and those men are uncomfortable because those men have wives and those men have moms and daughters. So you think you're being funny and you're actually being extremely offensive. But I think what men may struggle with is actually saying something about that, because then they're going to get teased, or then they're going to be like, oh, bro, okay, dude, you know, whatever. But it's like, it's still inappropriate no matter who's in the room. whether it's just men or just women. So I think that we need to be cognizant of that. And, I also want to say that what was mentioned earlier about mentoring, I know tons of women, especially leaders, who've had wonderful male mentors. And I just want to big up, because mine's right there, all right there. I want to big up my people, but a lot of us, I think, have had men who supported our growth, and so we don't want to kind of leave them out of the conversation, because we have had men that supported our growth and have, helped us get to where we are, as well as, women mentors as well. So.
Right. Can I just say one more thing on that? I'm sorry. But you go first, because I took your.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to Alicia's point. And when I said I didn't have any female mentors, I had excellent male mentors throughout my career.
Similarly, my first interview that I had, my male mentor, same company as Sue, so Stu Abrams, who Dave Stoll knows, because this is such a small business. Everybody knows everybody. But he got me that job because they did not want to hire me, because it was largely a field position. And they're like, well, how is she going to move a drum of water? Like how is she going to do that? It's called a drum cart. There's a way to do it. I'm sure I have to stand on it and rock it a little bit, but I'll get there. There's ways to do things, and it's only because of him that I got my very first job, and he's been a wonderful mentor. He's the one who brought me into client meetings and had me share my stuff firsthand as a right hand to him. So thanks, Stu.
Mine started so much earlier. 16 years old, Doc Wilson at my high school walked up to me and he said, "You're going to be the star chemist here at Gaffney High School." And I looked at this man, because I was trying to get into the biology class. And we're not going to go down that line. They told me not, that you can't do biology. But my head was hanging low. But he's like, "You're going to be the star chemist. You're going to make a 5 on your AP exam." And I looked at him like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." He encouraged me every day, had the whole class. He's like, whenever I had some issues, because you start liking them little boys and stuff. Yeah. And he come to me, he's like, "Do I need to call your parents? Because you're going to make a 5. I made my 5 on the I made the highest grade on the AP exam that year. And I went to school to be a chemist, but he supported me. And then I remember, I will never forget, and I know Tad won't. Tad said, "Cynthia, let's get in the car and go visit this client." And I'm like, "For what?" Because I don't know if they like us anymore.
Windshield time. Is that what we call it? Windshield time.
Yes,
windshield time.
Yes, Tad showed up with the client, opened the door, and introduced himself as the regional manager at that time. And I see you giving Cynthia a hard time. Well, Cynthia is our air girl here in South Carolina. If you want to work with HRP, you're going to work with Cynthia. And they looked at him. They looked at me. They looked at him. He's like, "So what are we going to do today?" He said, "Because you're not in compliance. You've been down to the state twice. You have some fees to pay. This is the best we have. You can work with HRP, who is Cynthia. I'm giving you the best, or you don't have to work with us at all." We got back in the car. They decided to work with us. And Cynthia got back in the car. He said, "That's all it takes sometimes, Cynthia." He said, "Just let me know. We'll get in his car." And I don't mind having the hard talks with some of our clients, because they just don't get it.
Right, the advocacy, the sponsorship with that. And that's actually why we have lanyards for everyone. We pass those out because we really want people to be wearing those lanyards when you're going on job sites or when you're going to visit clients, because it shows that HRP supports women and HRP does not tolerate, inappropriate behavior or harassment towards women. Like, that's what the lanyard is for. And we have pins and we'll have more stuff in the future, but that's really wearing that logo and that badge is really what that is showing for HRP. Any last words before we close? So we're going to open up to Q&A. So at this time, I'm going to move over to answer questions as well from the group, and Allison's going to come up here. But thank y'all so much. Thank you, panel. Great job.
So first, anybody in the audience currently have any questions that they would like to come up here and give? 1, 2, no? Okay. So this one's for the group. So how do you go about establishing boundaries in the workplace?
Establishing boundaries in the workplace.
I think that we struggle as people establishing our own boundaries, with family, and, things like that. So, when we think about, the importance of protecting our energy, right, and protecting that part and knowing that, no, it's important. My agency is important. My energy is important. Again, it's like really recognizing that I'm important, and so I'm going to build these boundaries. So, for instance, if, I have a family member who's calling me and I don't feel like dealing with that, I just don't answer the phone, and that's okay. And when I do answer the phone next week, I don't have to explain why I didn't answer the phone last week. That's a boundary. So I think at work, it's really being transparent with people, letting people know. That's the part, like sometimes we think that people can read our minds and they cannot. Sometimes people think, know where we are, know that I'm working on an RFP, know that I'm on a client site or whatever it is, and we don't communicate. So I think that helps with building boundaries in the workplace.
Thank you. Another question that we had was, how has women representation in your field changed over your career?
There's a whole lot more women out there now than there was when I started. Although I must say that HRP has always been a pioneer, I feel, in this situation, because when I first got hired in 2001, they were making a conscious effort to hire more women because they had noticed what a boys' club geology was and engineering was. So they had gone out of their way to hire women way back then. So, I think that's great.
One thing I think, seen an increase in is women in management. There's been, there's always seemed to be, some woman at the staff level, at the entry level. But for us to have the opportunity to, progress in our careers and, become more influential in companies and situations, it's pretty exciting.
My first trip here at HRP, I kind of felt bad for Tad. I did. We were in a van on 26 with about 50 computers in the back. No. We were on our way to Tennessee to a college audit program, and Tad was the only male in the van. And we stopped by the airport and picked up another female. So there was like 5, and I was pregnant. I got sick on that trip. Tad pulls over at the gas station, you can imagine. Pulls out the credit card and says, "Y'all take care of her, I'm gone. Come get me when I can come back to the van." I was so embarrassed. I felt so bad for Tad. I was like, Tad and all these, it was like Tad and the women experience. But it was a great trip for a whole week. But there have been so many women. And it made me feel good. I felt very good about the trip. And seeing all the other women on the trip, I'm like, girls, we got this. And Tad, girls, we got this. But we met up with other people, but it was just leaving South Carolina with a group of women, Tad driving us up the mountains, and we're going around this curve and changing the music and just having a good time. But there have been a lot of more women in these positions. And since I get to go to on-site visits with clients for EHS. So I'm doing monthly site visits. And we have clients that have a lot of turnover. So I get to see men and women coming through EHS manager position. So it's always great. And then whenever they bring HRP on site and see that we have women, it makes a woman in that position, especially if she's just out of college, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, you the person I get to work with." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, you're the person." Just don't tell me your age, because when they start with 25 now, I can't tell you.
I'm 22. I just turned 24 not that long ago.
No, please don't. But it's just so great to see them, and they get excited when they see us on site. They get excited when they see Tina out there as a geologist. Tad believed everyone, when we first started, there were 5 people 16 years ago at HRP in the office in South Carolina. So I actually went outside. Dan, I went outside. Tad had me go outside and dig a well or drill a well or whatever they do outside. Eat dirt and smell rocks. I'm sorry. Kim, I'm going to HR, y'all. I'm past the mic.
Ring.
I would say it's hugely different. When I first started, I was the only technical female in a smaller company. Everybody else who was female was accounting or administration. And I worked in Cube Central with everybody else in the technical realm. And somebody came in for a package, and they walked past an entire building's worth of people and came over to me to sign for the package. And I was like, what? Because I must be the secretary. It was bizarre. Like, why not just find the first person? Isn't that a lot easier? So strange. And now when I came to interview for HRP, I could see that at the time it was more than 50% of the geologists in the Gulch were female. That's like insane to me. That's really cool. And it happens more and more now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That representation is really important, what Cynthia was talking about. I think that word is mentioned a lot in these kinds of conversations. And, for the majority group, that's something you don't even see, right? It's not representation like, wait, I don't, maybe a sports team, right? But I use that as an analogy. So like when you see someone who, like for instance, my husband is a Chicago Bears fan. He lives here, but he's a Bears fan. And sometimes we see someone and he will walk up to them every time. And I'm like, can you stop bothering people? It's bad enough you're a Bears fan. So, they may have a good year next year. But that representation is really important. And so it is, because it really does change the dynamic. And when we're talking about, project managers and project staff building relationships with their clients and that personal touch, and we're asking questions about, what college did you go to, or how's your family, and things like that. When you get to have that conversation, when I get to have that conversation with another Puerto Rican woman, it's just a different, like, we already cousins. Like, it's fast. So that representation is so important. And so I just wanted to make that, understanding with everyone. It's so important.
Yeah. As a young woman who started her career not too long ago, I can totally agree with that. Representation is super important. And I won't lie, when I first started here, I was a little nervous. It's an engineering firm, and so I was like, I came in with this mentality, it's all gonna be guys. And I was like, you gotta toughen up, Al, there's gonna be conversations. And I was very excited that, there's a lot of women in this firm, and I still get very excited whenever, I see other women in our industry, and it's very exciting to see that kind of representation. It's very inspiring. And I just wanted to let everybody know that. And then our next question, speaking of, if you could go back to your 23-year-old self and give yourself advice that you know now, what would that advice be?
Well, I wasn't going to answer your question, but I was going to say thank you very much for having me. I have to go to my meeting. So enjoy the rest of the panel.
Go kill it, Queen. Go
kill it. You got it.
23-year-old self, that's a hard one. I don't know that I would give and do anything too much different, except that I would say don't take everything to heart as much. It's not always about trying to hurt your feelings. Nobody cares. Just kind of let it roll a little more, learn how to let it roll a little more, and it will make you feel better. Because sometimes things happen. I just went through this where I overheard some comments, and on its own it would have been fine. And then I heard another comment on the backside of that, and I was like, maybe this is a thing. But, it ends up being nothing, but you start thinking. It was like, could it be? Am I being too sensitive? I was totally being too sensitive. Yeah. But it's still there. But when I was younger, it was far worse. I care a lot less about what people think than I did then. Yeah.
I think my now self probably needs the same advice my 23-year-old self needs. I haven't largely changed at all since I was 5 years old. So my mom has stories for all of you, I'm sure. But yeah, I agree with Jessica. Thinking less, overanalyzing less, caring about what people think of you less, for sure.
Anybody else? Studies have shown that women tend to have more burnout, and we tend to take on a lot more work all at once. So how have you, over the years, been able to try to avoid burnout and say no to certain things when possible?
Yeah, Allison, tell us that.
I am still bad at that. I am not the person to answer that question.
So burnout. So there is no way to avoid it. I don't believe there is. But again, I think the boundaries is really important, being transparent and saying no. That's what's most important. I know for me, I've had to, when I became a manager 10 years ago, I still have a tough time delegating work. Like, it's really, really hard. I have a tough time doing that in all spaces in my life. But knowing that, okay, this person may not know how to do this, but it's not just giving it to them, it's also spending time with them to teach them how to do it. So I had to put my mindset around, this could take me a week or two to teach this person how to do it, but that week or two is worth the burnout, not having burnout. So just being really honest with yourself and knowing that burnout is kind of going to happen, because we're all humans and this is not our only responsibility. But again, building the boundaries and recognizing where you need to make changes and making them.
Yeah, just being self-aware of when it's coming and put those protections in place, right? Like, I was diligent about taking the me time before work for years, and I've fallen off the wagon. I mean, it happens. I got to get back to that, and I will. Once this report is done, I'm going to get back to it. No, but that's it. That's just it. There's always going to be something else. I mean, you could work 40 hours a week. You could work 50 hours a week. You could work 60 hours a week. We have the work. We have the backlog. You can just keep going.
You could work 80.
You could. But don't do that. There will always be a tomorrow. There will always be time to get to that tomorrow. It's just managing the expectation of the client to give yourself the grace and time to get through it.
I learned one thing through COVID. If I could get out this house, because all of us we were in the house. If I could get out this house, I'm going to make some changes, because that was a mandatory downtime for everyone. And it was a time for everyone to think what was important. And I also teach at night, and I tell my students the same thing. That lockdown should have been a reset for everything in your life. It should have. And if it wasn't a reset, it should have been some type of change in your life, because burnout is really serious for everyone. It can go from a child playing sports, and then we are made to feel, I remember having my daughter, we were made to feel like we can do everything. If we were meant to do everything, then I wouldn't need a doctor. What's the purpose of having a geologist if the chemist can do everything? What's the purpose of having a plumber if the electrician can do everything? So do your part. And so I understood what my part is and was, and I attempt to stay in that lane. But I've built more boundaries. I'm a lot more forgiving. The client doesn't get the work in on time. I understand. I'm working as a consultant. They're producing a product, and they're going to be lagging. I can't take that to heart. I need to let that roll off my chest, off my emotions, and I need to be prepared. I need to be prepared for them to be late. That sounds crazy. I need to be prepared for my 15-year-old daughter sassiness. I need to be prepared for they don't want that dinner tonight. But we're not preparing ourselves. It's always retroactive and reactive. And so, during COVID, I'm like, I'm sitting here. I'm done with this. Let's press reset, and this is going to give us an opportunity to work on those things. So that's where I really worked with the burnout situation. Just reset. Sometimes take that vacation. They're not paying you at HRP anymore to pile up your vacation. We have mandatory. I remember at one time people had weeks and weeks of vacation, weeks because nobody would take them. Now it's mandatory that we take vacation, because HRP has said, if you're not good, you can't come in and be good for your clients if you're not good for yourself. If I have a migraine for a week, I can't get anything done at my house, and I can't get anything done at HRP.
Thank you. Those were all really good answers. And then, so that really goes into my next question. Did you?
I was teasing. It's in therapy. Lots of therapy.
Yes.
Therapy.
Yep. Always be open to that. Always check in with yourself and make sure that you are getting what you need. That's very important. Mental health is super important. Which goes into my next question, which is we did talk a lot about, not caring what other people think, and how we are often our own worst critics. So how do you combat your own inner saboteur?
Okay, so I think you should name them. You got to name the person. Donna, me and Donna came up with her name together. You got to name the negative talk in your brain. And so by doing that, you're separating yourself with that entity, right? And so it allows you to say, no, to kind of argue with it. That really helps with that negative talk. And it's helped me quite a bit. I get very aggressive with her.
Now I really want to know the name.
Where's HR at? I feel like her might get me.
I would say if you can step out, well, kind of like that. Like, if you wouldn't talk to somebody else that way, why are you talking to yourself? So if you see somebody going through it, what advice would you give them? Take your own advice. And easier said than done, of course, but always.
All right. So if nobody else has any other questions, thank you all so much for coming to today's Leading Ladies panel.
You did a great job.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for our lovely panelists. Such good job. We hope to see you all.